Hello everyone, welcome back to Drama Fan. Based on episode 12, I think it's true that Donwal is the original Bulgasal. There is a possibility that he was the one who made Ulte's dark hole. Since Donwal is the one who gave the dark hole curse to Ulte, it seems that Ulte is deliberately getting closer to Donwal so that Donwal can kill Songun. After that, Donwal will become a human, and Ulte will be able to take revenge on Donwal and kill him. Later, Songun will explain that she didn't realize she had stabbed Donwal, but she saw Donwal standing among the dead bodies, and she saw Donwal who looked different. However, Donwal had a different dream when he was young. The one standing among the dead bodies is Songun. I think it could be that Donwal is the original Bulgasal, and he's trying to hide his identity because he likes Songun, who is a human. Like this painting, the man turns himself around because he wants to keep his identity a secret. That's why Donwal has memories of Songun like this. So he continued to suppress his thirst for blood to cover up his true self. So one day he was betrayed and killed. Donwal is helpless because he doesn't drink human blood. After that, Donwal was found by Ulte, and Donwal takes this from Ulte instead. This could be human's energy. So Ulte is still alive, but he turned into half Bulgasal. Since when his dark hole is being injured, Ulte grows old and his energy seems to run out. Feeling betrayed, Donwal kills everyone in the village after he get the energy back from this. At that time, Songun is still conscious and tries to kill Donwal. He stabbed Donwal's hand like the one in episode 1. I think Donwal will kill Songun because he wants Songun to experience what it's like to be betrayed. Also become Bulgasal when she has to quench her thirst for blood. Since Songun is human and turned into Bulgasal, it wouldn't be easy for her to drink human blood. After that, Songun decided to stay away from humans by leaving everyone behind. That's why in episode 2, when Songun killed Donwal to get her soul back, she was stabbed by Donwal and said, "This was all you're doing." In conclusion, all of this happened because Donwal started it. So there is a possibility that if Songun has all her memories, she will try to kill Donwal. Meanwhile, if Donwal has all his memories, he will also try to kill Songun, who has betrayed him. However, I think the case has changed since they like each other now. In the middle of a conversation, they will hear the sound of cars and people coming. The people are Siho, Yezuk, Doyun, and Detective Kwan. Donwal is worried about them because it is very dangerous for them to come there. However, Yezuk will comfort Donwal because they are all worried about them. Some more, Yezuk will see the blood on Donwal's shirt and will nag him again. It seemed they would all only spend a day, after which they would return the next day. However, while they were still at the house, the police came because they received a report about a murder suspect being in their house. Finally, Ulte uses his connections with the police. It's possible that Ulte reported that he found this person who died in the forest and that there was a police car there. And he will accuse Donwal of being a suspect and tell the police the location of his house. The police entered their house to look for Donwal, but he could not be found, so they will take Doyun, Yezuk, and Siho as witnesses. At the same time, it's possible that Donwal pulled Songun here because he wanted to talk about Ulte, but did not want to be heard by others in case they would worry about them. I don't think Donwal would have gone into hiding with Songun if he knew Doyun, Yezuk, and Siho would be taken away by the police. After the talk, when they return to the house, Donwal is confused because there is no one there. Also, Songun has checked the room and it is empty. It could be that at that time Ulte called Songun and told her that he brought them all. So Songun asks, "Where are they now?" Ulte replies, "Where they are is not what's important. You should be asking why I took them." Looks like Donwal will grab Songun's cell phone and tell Ulte, "If you lay even a finger on them, I am going to kill you." I think they were brought to Ulte's house. It could be that Donwal contacted Detective Kwan, who was not at home at the time, to go to Ulte's house first and look for them. When he arrives, Detective Kwan will be brought by this person to meet the others. After that, Ulte will tell this person to hurt them. He might ask him to only hurt them, but not to death. I think Ulte did this because Donwal has hurt him. By the time Donwal and Songun arrived, everyone had been injured. Donwal is angry and seems to be holding something here. Maybe this is something that can weaken Ulte. I think everyone will be able to be saved by Donwal. And Ulte will be dying again for hurting them all. That's it for this video. What do you think? Let me know what you think in the comments below. See you on the next video. Don't forget to like and subscribe. Thank you.